Hi there, I'm Mindie Kniss, and I am here with my good friend Renee Airya. I'm so excited to introduce you to her because she has amazing stories to tell. I wanted to create this video for you because, as you know, most of my interviews are only audio. But Renee happens to be here in Phoenix, so I said, let's do it on camera, even more fun. And then I get to spend more time with her. So it works out for all of us because you are going to be in for a treat to hear her marvelous stories.
And we get girl time.
And we get, get to hang out and laugh, which we do a lot.
Yes.
So, Renee, let's just start out. I was just asking you for a little bit of a bio, but I thought let's just do this on camera. So if you could give kind of an overview of where you've come from, the corporate scene, and then into what you're doing now to give our viewers just an idea of who you are and where you come from.
Okay, great. So basically when I look back at the trajectory of my life, I feel like there's kind of been three different categories for me. I was telling Mindie that I actually worked full-time starting at age 15. My parents were on like the lower middle class level, but I grew up going to Catholic schools, and all of my friends were extremely wealthy, and I needed to, keep up with my fashion scene. Yes, I needed to fit in and keep up with the fashion scene. So, and also actually looking back, now I'm realizing, actually just in saying this out loud, that I had a lot of compassion, for my parents, and watching how hard, my father was working. And I felt inside of myself that I had enough ambition and desire to go out, and create my own money. So, So I started working full time, and I was working in a retail store, actually, very high stress, high commission sales, and then eventually transitioned in my late teenage years to working for other corporate offices, such as being in call centers, being an assistant manager for credit card departments. So I was in like the 9 to 5, rat race basically is what was going on.
I hear that. I came from that same world.
And you grew up in the Midwest too, right? Mm-hmm. You grew up in Chicago. I grew up in Indiana, which is about like my home city is 2 hours away from where you grew up.
Yeah, very close.
And so,
which is why we now live in warm climates.
Exactly. Totally. Well, which brings me to the next thing, because when I was working at my corporate job, the assistant manager for the credit card department, I was so bored. I mean, my heart and soul was longing for something else. I actually remember one day when I was on a customer service call. I have a very loud laugh. That's one of my characteristics. And but like it's spontaneous, and I'm generally a pretty happy person. And I remember being on the phone one day, and I was actually hanging up on a call, and I was genuinely laughing because I loved my customers. I loved, doing the customer support. And I heard from down the hallway, the president of the credit union said, "Will you tell her to stop laughing?"
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah. And so, between not being able to express and just being so bored, Indiana was not, the place for me to be any longer, for my own personal growth. Actually, at the time, too, now that I'm thinking about it, I had just started reading the Celestine Prophecy.
Okay.
Yeah, which I guess is kind of a good segue into, because, when I read that book, growing up in some place extremely conservative and being raised, Catholic also, which, by the way, I was kicked out of Catholic schools when I was in 8th grade.
Maybe that's
another story.
That could be a good one.
That's another story, but I had always felt that there was something going on that I didn't know how to put into words. And so when I read Celestine Prophecy, I felt like that was confirmation, about whatever this feeling was that I couldn't articulate, which even at the time, looking back, I didn't understand it as spirit, as source, as God. But something opened up with me in reading that book. And, very long story short, I made a visit out to San Diego and had a friend who was living out here. I didn't even like San Diego at all, actually, when I visited. Wow. And I had this huge expectation of, it's going to be amazing and miraculous. Yeah, but, I kind of just didn't get it, and it was like culture shock, for me. But after I got home, my friend called me and said, Renee, you need to move here. And I said, no, I just don't really think it's the place. And he said, if you don't leave now, you're probably never going to leave.
And that would fire you up.
Yeah, exactly. And I really sunk into that. And even though the circumstance didn't seem like the perfect thing at the time, I'm very, very grateful that I had already kind of positioned myself in my life. I'd been saving money, for quite some time. So, when he said that, and I just sunk into it, I said yes. And when I came out to California when I was 21, I did take a corporate job when I first got out here. But this is kind of moving into the second phase of my life. So it's like the first phase, was the 9-to-5 corporate, living by validation of pretty much everything in the external world.
Okay.
I'm getting my paycheck, so that I can do this, so that when I do this, then I'm going to feel happy. I'm saving money so that I can be a respected member of society, and I'll be considered successful, and then I'll be okay. It's
out there in the future.
Yeah, everything was out there. And so after I left my corporate job when I was 21, I started pursuing more holistic studies. And the entranceway for me, and I know that it's like this, for a lot of people, especially women, why it's good to bring up. I had been professionally modeling off and on since age 12. And so when I came to California, I thought, well, this is like the land of entertainment. It's the land of entertainment and modeling. So, I'm going to go back into that field. So my interest in nutrition actually started from the external, perspective of, okay, if I, eat organic chicken that, it doesn't have fat in it, then this is how I'm going to look. But I'm so grateful for that, because it was a gateway for me to kind of make a link and move into the next transition. So around age 22, I started what I consider in my life to be the self-healing exploration, and so much passion, for this journey. And in a very short amount of time, I started working for Whole Foods in the nutrition department. I studied herbology, craniosacral work, massage therapy, NLP, hypnosis. It was just several years of very deep immersion in holistic studies, and I totally loved it. I was meditating up to 6 hours a day, actually, at that point in time, and I was on, I think what some people would consider to be a very strict regimen of working out, but for me, I was in full balance in my life. I had created some amazing rituals. And thank God, because at that time, and I know that you and I have had some conversations about this, and probably one of the reasons why you wanted to interview me today. I, at age 23, encountered my first near-death experience. And so that was during this phase of self-healing.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people that I interview have some experience like that. Malik Houlihan.
Yes.
He was one of my first interviews that I did, and that's what we talked about, was this near-death experience that he had, and his journey into healing and through healing from that, and even before that. Yeah. And it's amazing. So tell us about that, and then I have some follow-up questions.
Okay, too. Yeah, absolutely. So this particular experience, because again, talking about, just wanting to look good, and feel really good, I was just not having proper energy levels, and I knew from everything that I was studying that there was something that was going on with my digestion. And I had researched, all this stuff, and I went to see my gastroenterologist, and I actually remember carrying my little notebooks in there of I have irritable bowel syndrome. I self-diagnosed. I'm by all these studies and by my intuition, I have irritable bowel syndrome. And, I sat down with all of this, and the gastroenterologist, as I started kind of reading off what I thought was going on, he said, I don't think we need to look at that. And I said, okay, what does that mean? And he said, I'm very shocked, but, when you came in to get a scan done, I'd gone through a full myriad of testing, with him, and I was little by little getting results back. And he said, I called you in today because we got the result back, of a CAT scan, And what you have going on is a massive pancreatic tumor, and you have about 2 weeks.
And this
to
is
live.
at 23 years
So this was at age 23. And not at all what I was expecting. I was literally, Mindie, in complete terror and shock.
Sure.
You know, I actually, there was a mirror that was sitting kind of on the other side of the office, and I remember looking over at one point. I changed colors. You know, it was, I almost did go white, you know, and I could barely speak, and I said, you know, I don't understand. And he said, well, you know, normally this is hereditary, and, you know, it was like assumed to be cancerous because, you know, most tumors in the pancreas are. And he said, you know, what we're going to do is we're going to have to go in and do a biopsy, you know, in a few weeks, so that we can just see exactly what's going on. But you know, this is like a few weeks to like a month expectancy going on here. And so I walked out, barely walked out to the waiting room, and my fiance was actually in the waiting room, and his eyes were so like bright and shiny, and he said, oh, well, did you tell him what you think's going on? And I said, you know what, I'm gonna die. And he just, you know, kind of looked at me like, what are you talking about? And I said, yeah, you know, I obviously wasn't expecting this, but he says that this is what's going on. And my fiance looked at me and said, you're gonna get through this. I don't know what you're gonna do, but you have the power in yourself to heal this, and that is what we are going to make happen.
So powerful.
Very, very powerful. I'm extremely thankful to him for being such a catalyst for grounding me and anchoring me into something else, because at this point in time, I had read books about miracles. You know, I think that I was reading one at the time about angels and miracles. And so I had exposure. I knew about that possibility, but there was something very different about the knowledge of it, and this is actually where
embodying it.
Yeah, this
is in.
Right. How am I going to completely believe that this is true? So I called my parents actually several days after I was diagnosed, because I didn't, you know, want to obviously completely worry them about everything. And I told them that this is what was going on. They freaked out. You know, it was an extremely stressful, yes, very stressful situation. But what I found out at the time is that that's how my grandfather passed away.
So it was hereditary.
And I didn't know that.
Wow.
I had no idea. I knew that he had died of cancer, but I was never made aware that it had started in his pancreas. So that was an interesting thing, you know, to come up against. And I'll just do this little short tie-in right now. A lot of the work that I do right now is around genetic repatterning. And so at that time, because of the exposure that I had had to some belief system work, I basically did Japanese acupuncture, meditation, belief work, and prayer. And within about a week, I think, you know, I wasn't keeping track of it at the time, but it was definitely within a week to a 10-day time period. One day just came, and my fiance and I knew that the tumor was no longer there. It's like, I seriously woke up one day. I woke up one day and we looked at each other and said, are we thinking the same thing? And he said, yes, it's gone. And I said, I know, I really believe that this is gone. And I know that I've shared the story with you. Again, very long story short. So when I went in to get the biopsy done, as the universe creates its own synchronicities, you know, for you often.
Totally.
I showed up for the biopsy and my doctor didn't show up. Not normal. I mean, not really normal for a major procedure for a doctor to just not show up. But he didn't, and so he had a substitute that was there. And the substitute just so happened to not have access to my medical records. I know, this is like, it's such an amazing thing. And so, you know, my fiance and I looked at each other and said, okay, you know, this is it. Because I was very scared to get the biopsy done. The biopsy in and of itself is extremely dangerous. You have to travel through multiple organs to even get to the pancreas. So we went in and had an ultrasound done so that they could see where the tumor was. And lo and behold, when they did the ultrasound, it was just completely gone.
Amazing.
And amazing. Yes, it was a true defining moment in my life for sure. You know, I got something on a very deep level, that there is support that is here for us that is beyond our wildest dreams. And,
yeah. I mean, that changes everything. I remember Louise Hay talking about how she had been teaching. She was a metaphysical teacher for so many years. Mm-hmm. And then she got her cancer. And then she had a similar experience where just through affirmations, prayer, all of that, nutrition, she was able to miraculously heal it herself. And she was like, I had to actually embody my own teachings. And in a way, you had read about that stuff. You were familiar with the ideas and the concepts, but to actually bring it into your physical body is a whole nother level, which is so cool.
It was very beautiful, and still is, you know, to this day. And you know, that's been about 14 years ago. But it's, when I look back, that was definitely one of the most defining moments of my life, and just feeling complete liberation, you know, and such a sense of inspiration, you know, and just general hope for the world as well.
That anything is possible.
Yeah, to experience that, and then to be able to carry that, you know, for other people, and to hold that space, you know, of calling in the magic and calling in the miracles for people. So I actually, you know, after that point in time is when I got certified in NLP and hypnosis. And, you know, even at that time, and I know that I had gone through so much with my health already, I kind of felt like something was off in my body, you know, even still after that. And I couldn't tell if it was just like post-traumatic stress, you know, or what was going on. But what I knew at that point in time is I was dedicating my life to personal development and spiritual growth. And so because of that, you know, my passions were just, you know, in healing arts. And so neurolinguistics training, absolutely another defining moment in my life. You know, I saw miracles happening in that course. It was just so beautiful. Awesome. And I immediately went into full-time practice after that, and working with energy healing and timeline therapy, you know, for people. And I did that for several years. And then in my late 20s, you know, I was ready for a change and a move. So I actually moved from San Diego to Los Angeles. And this is kind of getting at the tail end of my self-healing, you know, second journey experience. I was living in LA, professionally modeling. I was actually traveling a lot because I was a fitness model. So I was doing calendar work, you know, around the world, like the fun Hawaiian bikini calendars and all of that jazz. Because, you know, as women, it's like, you know, it's nice to be able to inspire, you know, people in that way. And I spent a lot of time in nature. And, you know, basically the deal is I looked extremely healthy. I was very, very fit, you know, like ridiculous fit. I work out for several hours, you know, every day, and was eating meticulously healthy. And, you know, I really had one of these lives where people talk about getting in routines. I was in like a serious routine,
well,
you know, every
have
day.
To be for that kind of lifestyle too, to maintain that, that's essential.
Yeah. And so one day when I was at Pilates class, I had this very strange injury that happened with my foot. And my logical mind kicked in and said, something isn't right here. You know, by the lifestyle that you're living and as strong as your body externally appears to be, something shouldn't have happened. And it was very interesting. It was just like it was a super minor logical thing that I could have passed off. But I kept feeling like it just came up, you know, for several days. And so I, being a person of prayer, you know, and meditation, and I'm really big about asking for answers in dream space. Nice. So because I wasn't really getting anywhere, you know, asking my waking questions about it, I asked for answers in dream space. And I was getting in my dreams, and shortly thereafter when I was waking up, that there was definitely something pretty major that was going on with me and with my health. And I realized actually at that time, something just jolted in my memory because, you know, we're living in such a fast-paced society all the time,
Absolutely.
especially in Los Angeles, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the 405 freeway, you know?
Crazy.
Yeah, the freeways, the mindways, you know, everything. I had a remembrance that I had spoken with a friend about 2 months prior, and I had a little mini breakdown and told him, you know, I feel like there's something wrong with me, and I don't know what it is. And Mindie, I had like somehow blocked out that conversation. You know, and at the time it seemed so pertinent, you know, to my well-being, but I must have just had it, you know, and blocked it out.
Yeah.
And so I intuitively remembered that. And then shortly after, I heard a louder, intuitive voice that said, you are going to die very soon unless you get help. And
were you just like, come on, I already
Yeah.
went through this.
No,
I
well-
already did this. I already heard that. And you know, come on. I could just imagine the frustration that would boil up in me saying,
Yeah.
you know, I've done my turn with all this stuff. What do you do
I
with
did.
that?
I did do that, and I was devastated, actually. I mean, that's the truth about it. I felt so overwhelmed that I don't even really know how to put it in words. Like I can even feel it in my chest right now, you know, getting choked up about it. At that point, I had gone through so much, and I had worked so hard. Like I had tried so hard.
Yeah.
I mean, everything, you know, diet, you know, spiritual coaching, you know, just like, and I was also extremely optimistic and like very happy person,
Right. I mean, I know
you
that.
know,
That's
so yeah,
accurate.
basically what was coming up is, yes, anger, you know, I was having anger. The most overriding emotion, I would say, was just straight up fear, because I didn't know what to do, you know, I didn't have health insurance. I felt at a very deep level that I knew it was not going to be an easy journey. And yet at the same time, I also had something else was guiding me. That's really the best way to put it. Because when I look back now, I have a lot of strength, and I always have had. That's probably my biggest gift, you know, is strength. I had a lot of strength. But what happened during the 3-month time period from the moment that I heard you're probably going to die until the moment that I was diagnosed with what happened was some of the most excruciating times in my life. You know, there was one point where I actually had lost feeling completely on the right side of my body and drove myself to the emergency room with my left leg. And, you know, and I waited there for 30 hours, you know, in the emergency room. And by the time I got back there, I was just crying and, you know, trying to explain to them that I had studied so much about the body and that I know that there wasn't anything going on in my blood work, but that there was something going on in my brain. That's the only thing that I could really figure out, is there is something that's going on in my brain. And I didn't even know why and how I knew that, but, you know, I just knew that. And you know, this is something fascinating that I'm choosing to know was maybe only my experience, or I'm choosing to believe that it's shifting. And this isn't only, you know, in Western medicine, but I think it's kind of a symptom of being human, you know, in general. Sometimes when a person comes to another person and is so aware of their truth and communicates their truth, sometimes that can spark defensive energy and judgments, you know, from another person. That's very much what I experienced, you know, actually for almost 2 months. You know, it's like every time I went into someone and, you know, was just in tears often and explaining, I was getting, you know, you're hypochondriac, there's obviously something else that's wrong with you, you know, your blood work is fine.
Right.
You know, they were telling me the most random things. And so finally I hit bottom one day and I just prayed, who can I go see that is actually going to be able to do something for me, you know, at this point in time?
Or that can hear that something is wrong and something is going on, that they won't just be like, oh no, you're fine, you know, stop.
Right. Yeah, at least hold space for that.
Absolutely.
I thought maybe if someone, you know, with a medical background can at least hold space and be open to almost mastermind. Like what
What's
what's the next action step?
Yeah.
What do we do here? Luckily, I had a remembrance of who that person could have been, and I went in and had a real heart-to-heart with this man who is still a very good friend of mine, and he was very precise with who he recommended me to go see, which was a neurologist. Him and I both thought, yes, by what you're feeling, it probably is something neurological that's happening. And so, fast forward from that moment of feeling like there was something extremely wrong to me going back for my follow-up visit with the neurologist, my MRI scan that I ended up having done a few days after I met this neurologist, when I went in for the follow-up visit, showed something that I was not prepared for at all. But I still remember to this day, standing in front of the scan machine, and he pulled up my MRI scan, and I remember looking at it and thinking, whoa, that looks really intense. And then I thought, oh my God, that's my head.
Yeah.
And
what was it that you saw?
There was a very, very large, very, very large tumor in my brain. It was actually really the only thing that I could see, on the scan, because tumors light up, with a certain type of injection. And so, my brain and head and everything was there, but, what was lit up was a tumor, and, it was very significant. And in fact, my brainstem was, it was like at a C curve.
Because it was pushing it back.
Right, it was connected to the brainstem, and he looked at me and said, I don't know, how you've done this. I didn't have any symptoms at all of a brain tumor. I wasn't having the headaches. I wasn't having, the head pressure. I should have had almost full hearing loss, at this point in time, but I had, none of those symptoms. And I shortly found out after that the tumor had been there for almost 15 years. So hence the reason why my whole, after getting into my spiritual path and developing this sense of listening and this sense of attuning to the body, which you do that when you start paying attention to your diet. You do that when you start listening to clues that are around you.
Absolutely.
You do that when you meditate and you can start hearing your inner voice. It all of a sudden made so much sense to me that on the one hand, I felt complete total relief and liberation of, okay, I will never have to look again, for what's going on,
right.
Because this is just it. And then, another sense of, holy crap, like, what do I do about this? I had no health insurance. I was very tired because, I had gone through a lot, at this point in time. So I was very tired. I was also very peaceful, which was fascinating because there was a moment in time where I actually decided I wasn't going to do treatment at all. I felt pretty surrendered to that. I felt at peace, with myself. I felt, well, if I'm doing the best that I can with all of these areas in my life, and if this is still what my body is producing, maybe this is just my organic karma. Maybe it really it was a very interesting reflection to see what can come up, with the whole life and death, and are you ready? Are you not ready? Because surely
you have a choice.
Right, and I surely, would have died at this point in time had I not opted to get the surgery done, if only because I really felt like I had done everything in my power for years, to heal myself. And at this point, I mean, the tumor was so large and just out of hand. I actually, about a week after getting the diagnosis, my brain produced natural DMT, and I completely lost my vision for 4 hours. And so there were a lot of major complications, that were happening. My turning point was actually in talking to my family. I called them, and they were extremely shocked. Again, it's like, here's their daughter living in California. I'm still in my 20s at this point in time. Both of my parents, are living. I have a younger sister. And I called for guidance, for spiritual guidance. And I was really, really blessed to talk to a woman that I felt like I had a lot of trust in. And she said, getting the surgery done is the most courageous thing that you're going to be able to do.
Wow.
Because you are going to die. And as you've communicated to me, there's actually a large part of you that's okay with that surrender, and you're okay with dying. So you can look at it as you are dying and you're choosing to still be here and be on a new path. And the new path may not be an easy one, but it is the most compassionate thing that you can do. And that really, it was very deep, that conversation for me.
Yeah, well, just hearing about it today, I can feel that. I'm like frankly getting teary-eyed, just the depth of that decision and that conversation with her and your choice. So powerful. And great courage always makes me cry. Any movie that is, totally courageous, I'm like bawling my eyes out. So, yes.
It was, and we all, the thing about it is that in sharing my story too, it has, and you know this, and I think that your viewers, probably know this as well, but, it's just a reminder, I am here as a reflection, and as an archetype, as an external model, for people to reference to. This is the depth, the beauty, the innocence of being a human on this planet. And we all have our own near-death experiences. And they take form in very different ways, and in my case, it just so happened to be an extreme, intense form of the kind of almost life versus death in the dance, of all of that.
What a beautiful example of grace, too, in that choosing and in that decision process and in just going through that and just saying, you're here and you're you and you're doing your thing and you're so on your path. And yet that path took you through, excuse me, all of those different experiences. But wow,
It was, a true opportunity for humility, really, I guess, is kind of ultimately, what comes up there. And so I started dialoguing, a lot with my family. And as I mentioned, I didn't have health insurance.
Yeah.
This surgery was $250,000. It just so happened that, of course, in all of my abundance, that I would, manifest the the most dangerous brain tumor, to operate
the most
on.
Expensive
Yeah, I needed, I needed to be high maintenance or something, which is so funny because I'm actually so low maintenance, really. But so my body obviously wanted attention, and that's just how it went. So
how did that work? Just because I know a lot of times people hear these miracles and it's like, oh, I didn't have health insurance, and yet this surgery was crazy expensive, and I got through it. But how did that all come about?
Okay, so I'll definitely share that, and this is a really good point, and I think something that ultimately is very powerful and a very good reminder for people. So much of my journey has been a very spiritual journey, and at the same time, you can't experience the integration of spirit without your own personal involvement.
Totally.
Right? And so what I can tell you is that I prayed a lot.
I bet you did.
I prayed a lot. I believe that because of the heartfelt connection that I had with the very first doctor who then got me to the other doctor, and then this other neurologist who referred me to the brain surgeon, my angels were looking out for me as much as they could, given the circumstances, and I ultimately believe the karma that I was supposed to deal with, in this life, and then also being shown or being able to experience that which allows me to be the person that I am today. I can kind of see clearly how these different things connected. But I went in to meet with the brain surgeon, and the beauty of it is that he actually worked at a very large, one of the most famous hospitals in the world, actually. And because they were such a renowned facility, they had different like financial departments, and they had done some research for me. I mean, I'm so lucky and blessed and even talking about this right now. They had done some research for me and basically found a clause in Medi-Cal. Now, if you go to apply for Medi-Cal in the state of California, anyways, it's over 65 you're qualified, or if you have dependents. And that's it.
Neither.
And I had neither of those things. You know, I was an entrepreneur. Right. I was, an entrepreneur in my 20s, paying taxes, doing my thing. And so I put in an application with Medi-Cal, and the woman kept doing research, and then contacted me a few days later and said, you know what? There's a clause in here that if you are experiencing a life-threatening situation, then Medi-Cal is obligated to pay. I got that one. And so we thought, okay, hello. It's like just by looking at the scans, you can see this. So I started all the, processes of going through Medi-Cal, and, was positive that it was going to go through because, obviously I had this condition going on. But what happened in the interim with all of this, and I'm going to choose to share this part of the story because in the present moment, one of the things that I'm here to share with women is really connecting to your intuition.
Good.
And it's so powerful. And I mean, it's powerful for everyone. Yeah. I mean, for men, and women alike. I have a particular passion for women, and women's health and sisterhood, really, really supporting my sisters. And, there's just such an opportunity with where we are right now in time to claim back, our, I don't want to say claim back, let me rephrase that, to have remembrance about our femininity. And some of those
power there.
Great, yes. And it's very powerful. And I mean, it has absolutely saved my life. I mean, had I not followed my intuition by, the voice of that something was wrong, I would literally be dead right now. It wouldn't even be that maybe XYZ would happen, I wouldn't be alive.
Right, because it was those little tiny nudges that you just followed and kept listening to that brought you through all those things.
Yeah, exactly. And so my nudge when I went into this office was I did not want this person to be my surgeon. I had a very, very bad feeling, just instantly walking into the office, and, what it felt like was heaviness. What it felt like when I was in his presence was fear and disconnection. Nice. I'm naming these feelings out loud to help your viewers for, just different ways that they can begin to sense. It was tightness in my body. I mean, in fact, when I saw him, I almost instantaneously wanted to cry because it didn't feel right. Now, these things would have been very easy to overlook because I was in a life and death situation, and because I needed to get immediate surgery. Right. It's not like I had time to go around and research everything in the world, and he is known as one of the top surgeons in the world. So it was I could have gone into a lot of logical places with analyzing all of it, or just said, what, I just need to get this done, and I have to do it. Right. So at any rate, I kept having this strange feeling. It got closer and closer to the surgery, and then 3 days before the surgery, I went in to the office, and the nurse said, I just wanted to let you know that the doctor actually passed your case on to somebody else.
You're like, yes.
Well, it was fascinating because actually the particular surgery that I had is the most dangerous form of brain surgery because it's right by all of your nerves, in the head. And so I thought, okay, well, who's this other doctor? The other doctor had done zero surgeries of that type. I didn't even know what to say, about all of this. But I did know what to say. I said, I'm leaving. So I left because I couldn't I could not believe the amount of lack of integrity, that had happened with all of this, 3 days prior. So anyways, I ended up connecting with the person who was supposed to be his assistant. And that man was also very connected to my other friend who had originally, even brought me into this journey. And so the beauty of it is that even though, one road was closing, another path, completely opened up for me. And I had been making silent prayers and intentions for one particular surgeon that I wanted to work with. I was saying mantras actually with this man's name, and I kept feeling this is a person that should be doing my surgery. And lo and behold, the assistant doctor calls me back and says, I can't believe that all this is happening for you, and I can't believe that your surgery just got dropped. And so I am bringing in this other surgeon who has done over 10,000 of these surgeries, and it was the same person that I had been praying to manifest. And not only that, Mindie, but they really felt, for my case, I got that they saw me, they understood what was going on. And so they offered to do their portion, of the surgery completely pro bono. So, awesome. So that we could go in and do that. And there was just so much going on, at this time, as you can probably imagine. So I want to, finish up with really the tokens and the gems, from that experience, because I think it will be really valuable for all the women out there.
And men.
And men, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, of course, men. we love our men. That I went into the surgery in my own way. I had my, prayer, meditation, and family and friends gathering, at a spiritual center, actually, like the day before I went into surgery. And I had to actually get cut into my abdomen because they put fat from your abdomen in your head, actually. So I got like dual surgery, at the same time. And I drew on my stomach, like, put sexy scar here. And I had braided my hair really cool on one side so they could shave the other side. And I was so surrendered. It was really beautiful. It was just, I'm here. I fully trust. I bought cards for everyone, that were in the surgery room. I gave them all gemstones. Cool. It was magical, and it was beautiful. And I remember, kind of the last thing before the surgery is I was just, laying in the bed with the two women, the one that had just shaved my head, and the other lady was kind of like stroking my braid and saying, oh my gosh, your hair is so beautiful. And then I was just out, because I went under the anesthesia. And before I went under the anesthesia, my understanding was I was going into a 7-hour surgery. What seemed like a very, 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 very long time. And when I say that, I actually even mean decades. Like it felt like a very long time. Wow. I opened my eyes when I was being wheeled down the corridor, and my friend looked down at me and said, something's gone very wrong, and your surgery took double the amount of time that it was supposed to. And, I heard this, but I kind of fell back, into anesthesia. And I was brought to the intensive care, and I was there for 3 days. And I didn't know much of what was going on. At the time, I was just in a lot of pain. I mean, like writhing pain. And I eventually was brought up to the hospital room. And one of my surgeons came in, and bear in mind, I don't have any idea what's going on. It took a long time for this anesthesia to wear off for me. My friends would enter the room and they would try to talk to me, and I just remember kind of telling everyone to go away, and get out, because I was very confused. And my surgeon came over to me and said, Renee, I'm so sorry. And he was crying. I mean, like a middle-aged man crying, saying, we did everything that we could. And, you have this patch on your eye right now because your eye will not open and close. Your face is completely paralyzed. on the right hand side. And we are so sorry. We tried to save it, but the tumor was so large and so aggressive when we got in there that the only thing holding your facial nerve together at all was the tumor. So
once that was gone,
in order to take any of it out, it fell apart completely. And so, you can only maybe imagine, or maybe not.
I don't know.
Imagine it was a very intense awakening. Let's just say it was definitely an awakening. For me, I had gone in and all trust, all surrender. And actually, I was thinking to myself, yippee! Like, I'm not going to have to worry about anything. I knew I was going to be deaf. In 1 year, and I was accepting that consequence because the tumor needed to come out, and you're automatically deaf, as soon as your head is cut into that way. But at any rate, I looked at him, and I'm so thankful to this day that I went through the pancreatic tumor, that I had gone through all of the healing work that I had done with clients, and being in that continuous space of connecting with miracles, of connecting with manifestation, of connecting with personal power. And I really, I actually didn't skip a beat. It came pretty spontaneous for me. I looked at him and said, I'm gonna smile, and I'm gonna laugh again, and I'm gonna dance. I don't know why I said, I was just so,
dance.
I'm going to dance. And that, started a very long journey for me. I had to teach myself to walk again. I lost a balance nerve on one side of my head. Mindie, it was very scary. I watched so many people come and go out of the hospital that had gone through the very same surgery that I had gone through, and I was that example of what they didn't want to happen. And I actually remember sitting in my wheelchair looking outside one day, and I couldn't see anything. Like, my vision was so blurry, and I was just saying, God, please let me see trees again, let me see nature again. And there were a lot of days of this, but as the anesthesia started wearing off, and as I kept staying so committed to the words that I uttered, like, I'm going to smile, and I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to dance again. That started a journey of about 6 months. And I gave myself, the key with this is I convinced myself at a very deep level, by my trust and belief in spirit, and also my connection with my personal power and commanding my personal power. I set a time frame as to when this healing was going to happen.
Good. And
I took very deliberate action every single day, and I worked my butt off. And that kind of weaves around, to what you were saying. How do you feel that this, comes about? And my answer with merging, the spiritual with the personal, setting the intentions, and then also being responsible with what you are going to bring forward. It's not like, we all are just entitled. We are entitled because we're, children of God, and at the same time, what is the free will, that you're going to bring forward? So I went from, a few days prior of my brain surgery, being in a grocery store, and I shared the story with you of someone coming up to me saying, "You have the most beautiful smile I've ever seen," to a month after the brain surgery, being in a grocery store with a completely paralyzed face, wearing an eye patch, and a child actually crying behind me in line and saying, Mommy, what is wrong with that girl? I'm sharing this not to feel sorry, for me by any means, because I'm good, and I'm okay.
And I think they can see that.
Yeah, so. And it's the when you're going through something extremely intense, and when you're going through transition, the intention that you hold for yourself and your grace and commitment in walking that needs to be so strong, so strong, that even, you know, the contrast of those type of comments, you know, I could let it come in. I cried, you know, after I heard this. I thought, oh my God, like and I knew I was never going to be the same again. But you know what? None of us are ever going to be the same again.
Right.
After
completely an illusion.
It is. And when we get done watching this, you're not going to be the same. You know, when you leave after this interview today, you're not going to be the same. I'm certainly not going to be the same when I wake up tomorrow. You know, it's just, we're constantly changing and, you know, kind of up against that battle, you know, and the surrender with the whole aging process, with the whole, you know, evolutionary process. So, you know, in the times of being confronted with what I had lost, I let myself feel the feelings and then would immediately return to, okay, and what is it that I'm creating now? So for me, you know, I was the kind of end result of this is that within 6 months time period, my facial nerve regrew 60%.
Amazing.
And I had an MRI done, and the doctors called me and said, we have never even seen a facial nerve, you know, on this type of study. Renee, what is going on? You know, this is amazing. And they were so happy, you know, and so excited. And, you know, one of the reasons too why I was very happy to do this interview with Mindie today is because, and you also mentioned to me that most of your, you know, interviews are audio, and you said that at the beginning. I feel so grateful and blessed to be here with you on camera today. Yeah. You know, for many different reasons, and also just to be sitting here as an example for those people that might feel ashamed for stepping up and really sharing themselves with the world. My face is still rather paralyzed on the right-hand side. I mean, my eye doesn't completely blink all the time. It looks like my eye kind of rolls back a lot because it doesn't produce any moisture. And when it doesn't produce moisture, the eyelid will try to coat, you know, the eyeball as much as possible. I don't have a full smile on the side by any means. And it's so beautiful that we can still get on camera and share ourselves, you know, and that to me is such an extraordinary opportunity and demonstration of beauty from the inside out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from the outside, I mean, anybody watching this, and I always look at all your photos on Facebook and I'm like, Renee, because you emanate beauty, and it is internal and external. You know, it's not about like the symmetry of a smile or whatever, you know, it's so apparent and everybody will be able to see that. So that was another reason that I was like, let's do it on video.
Thank you so much. And you know, it is, it's an opportunity for me and still a continued growth edge for me. And you know, I'm just sharing this because I know that often we compare, you know, people being humans is, you know, there's a lot of comparison that goes on. And, you know, I, like everyone out there, you know, experience my fear, you know, with things. And, you know, probably it's going to run through my head, you know, after this interview, oh my gosh, well, I wonder if the better side of my face is getting seen more. I wonder if that was a good angle. What if I don't come across, you know, correctly because I don't express, you know, because I'm not the same, you know, as I ever was. And so I'm just sharing this because no matter where you are out there for all of you, or where you are perceiving that you are in the moment, you are exactly perfect where you are in your perfection and in your imperfections. This is what you are here to be. And, you know, I personally am really here to help people alleviate as much suffering as possible. And, you know, mostly the main suffering is coming from, you know, lack of self-esteem, shame, you know, doubt in our abilities, fear of not living up to these society standards. And, you know, and we all experience the most successful people that we as society perceive as being the most successful. They're right there too. They're going through, you know, the same thing as well. So, you know, just to know that you are not alone. We're certainly there with you, on the human journey. And that as we step out, and share our stories, which is why I love connecting with clients. I love connecting with you and our group of friends and our clients and everyone that we come in contact with, because we love to share stories, and everyone's story can help inspire another person.
That's the healing process, I think, is looking at that narrative of who we are, where we've come from, what we've experienced, the path, whatever it was, whether it was a certain illness, a certain job, a certain relationship, no matter what, that path is taking us, as you said, and I would have said it exactly the same way, it's always, you're perfect right where you are, right here, right now. And sharing that then is that healing journey. And because really, the more we share it, the more we understand it's all the same story. We all have that same narrative,
Totally.
that overarching narrative. It might look different, or different timing, or different whatever, but it's ultimately the same. So there is that ultimate unity, that connection point, and within that is true healing.
Yes. And the last thing that I wanted to share, and just kind of finishing up these 3 different categories. And so in my mid to moving into my late 30s now, always in my life I'm going to be on a journey of self-healing, to some degree. But so the 15 to the 21 of the external validation, and then from there moving through the very deep personal self-healing, just mostly about self and cultivating my own deeper personal awareness. Right now my journey in life is about service and contribution. And, I was just saying a minute ago, really sharing, the story, sharing my story, having other people share their stories with me. I've become very involved with Pachamama Alliance, which is an absolutely extraordinary organization that is working on behalf of the Amazon rainforest in Ecuador, and with a particular tribe there called the Ashwar people. So in the last year and a half, I've become a representative for them.
That is so awesome.
It's very fulfilling.
If you guys don't know what that's about, look it up online or read Lynn Twist's book, because she talks a lot about them and their journey, and it's incredible.
It's very profound.
Absolutely.
And we are just all so connected, on this planet. And it's perfect for me because it helps me to carry on my legacy and personal mission, with healing. I didn't really get to mention this before, but nature has been an integral part of my healing journey and process. And so to be able to align, with an organization, and I'll just share with you their mission statement actually for the symposium that I help facilitate is to create an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilled, and socially just human presence on the planet. And that right there actually kind of sums everything up, right?
That's what we're here to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So much. Thank you for being vulnerable, being open and real, and just saying, hey, this is where I've been, and also opening to other people so they can say, oh yeah, this is what I've experienced, this is what I've come from, and it's so resonant. There's so much familiarity in what you're saying to what other people have experienced, what I've experienced, what we've all been through. So, my dear, if you all want to get to know Renee more, I absolutely suggest that you do. Give them your website.
My website is awakenyoursource.com.
awakenyoursource.com. I'll put a link to that somewhere around this video. And when I first heard that, I loved it. When I initially started my business, it was called Awaken Consciousness.
Oh my gosh.
So it was that was what it was, and then I ended up changing it for a variety of reasons. But I was like, yeah, awaken your source. Same thing.
And aren't we just all doing that at the core?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. So thank you again.
Thank you, Mindie. And thank you so much, everyone, for spending your time and just being here and listening and sharing. And I really hope that whatever intention it is that you had at the beginning of watching this video is fulfilled, is added to, and that there is a part of you that has become activated or awakened.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm Mindie Kniss.